Everybody, today we are talking to Henrik Kromann Jensen, and we have known Henrik for quite some time now. He is the person that we know, the living man, Henrik Kromann Jensen of the Jensens, who knows the most about sovereignty and what that actually means, and the state of the law and so many other things. Like, we are only going to skim the very, very surface of this topic, and it's basically everything that we have been born into.
Yeah.
And stepping out of this system takes a lot of knowledge and realization about what has been going on right in front of our very eyes and underneath our noses and all around us our whole lives. From the very second we come into this world, we are being born into a system that uses us in ways we don't even see or imagine.
So Henrik, when did you realize that something was off and wrong, and you thought, I want to learn more about that?
Well, I guess I always knew that something was off. My first memory of the whole thing was I was about 5 years old, and my parents, they were very scared about the whole nuclear, war kind of thing that was going on back then. And I just walked up to my mom and said, "You don't have to worry, there's not going to be any war." And they just looked at me, but I just knew I came in with an instinct about these things.
Wow. And
so I have lived, you could say, a kind of a different life. I was never, I never got fully enveloped in the system, because, as an example, I was never married, so I never had a marriage. Because that's also a contract with the system. I never had a mortgage, so I always rented the places where I lived. So a mortgage is a debt pledge, and that basically you sign your life over to be administered by who you sign that over to, which is the bankers. So I've known all the time that this was going on, but I never had the comprehension or the tools, applicable, practical day-to-day tools that I got in when I took the David Miller course, Tricks and Traps of the Courts, which was in about end of 2017. And I heard about the live claim, which is a document that you create that tells, that identifies you, and you make it yourself, because only you know who you are. You have firsthand knowledge. And up to that point, there is only one paper that exists, which is a birth certificate. And it's a copy of a birth certificate, actually. Yeah. So, and everything you got in the system, like driver's license, social security number, where you lived and all that stuff, is all on paper based off of that birth certificate. So your whole existence was really based on a fraudulent document as a fact. And once I realized that I could make my own claim of life, and I could register it to myself, copyright it if you want, through the mail system. And that's when I took control of my persona, or my identity. And later on, then I have now copyrighted it as a trade name, and the system is just leaving me alone after I did that. So 17, I spent a lot of time learning when this man, David Miller, he talked about quantum grammar and how that was not fiction, that was fact. I was kind of like, that sounds interesting, but how does that work? And then he mentioned mathematics, basic algebra. And that's one of the things that I knew I was good in, because I'm my education is as a electronics engineer, and later as an IT systems engineer. So I build systems, and I design systems, and I make them work, and that's my trade. So I started studying math, and I couldn't actually get it until a certain point when suddenly I realized what it was and how that works and how it's all hooked up on natural law, really, and the laws of nature, because I started studying that as a young man. And suddenly that whole thing made sense when you include geometry and sacred geometry into the equation. Then
I think many people that are listening to this,
makes sense.
if it's for many, it will be the first time. So this all sounds like a lot of gobbledygook. So we have to like start with like what is natural law, and we talk about the birth certificate. We come in and we get this birth certificate.
And when did that start? Yeah.
Well, maybe not the when, but like we have to show people that this is actually, it's not just crazy talk. This is actually provable. These are provable facts, which is the whole point of the quantum grammar, is provable facts that you can state that cannot be changed. So what is natural law, and what law are most of us living under or in, if we can start there?
Okay, we are all living in and under and subject to natural law.
Yes.
That's how you're born. If you fall out the window, you're going to fall down. That's the natural law. Okay. It doesn't exempt certain parties that is like elites or something. It applies to everybody. You know, you break your leg if you fall. So we are all under that natural law. Now, you're not born with a big stamp in your head that you're under natural law. So there's no paper, there's no physical evidence except your body that is tangible physical evidence that you live, that you are actually capable of walking around yourself. You're not sitting in a wheelchair and someone push you. So you qualify under these simple rules of what is something that is alive. And that's something a coroner, a doctor, is certified to ascertain. Like, is there a heartbeat? You know, is there heat? Is there reaction to the pupil and stuff like that? Those are the basic criteria for whether life is present or not in a human body.
Yes.
Or any body of any animal on the planet. So all these creatures that is on this planet is under the same natural laws. And they cannot be altered or changed or nullified as long as you are on this planet. So that's where it starts. And all law that is made later by man is based on the natural laws. But then it has a twist, which is, you know, to give them, you know, the advantage over you because they know things you don't know. So the next thing that happens when you arrive here is you're put into a school, which is basically an indoctrination camp, teaching you not to think for yourself. They're teaching you what to think, not how to think.
Mm-hmm.
They're teaching you how to behave and how to be. And if you do what they want, they reward you. And if they don't, they punish you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is all about programming you away from natural law. Okay?
Okay.
So, yeah, so you get a bank account, you put some money in there. That's really their money. It's their bank account too. But you're allowed to use it. And the money also is theirs because they created the currency, whatever it is, dollars, kroners, it's their property.
Currency.
So they decide, oh, you can borrow our stuff as long as you do as what we say. So, you know, that's how it all starts. But when we are young and we are kids, we have an instinct about those things, but we cannot really, at that age or when we become aware of this, we cannot stand up for ourselves and say, I don't want to be part of that.
No.
But let's say when you turn 18, 21, maybe you do want to stand up for yourself. And then you try that for a while and you figure out you lose all your friends. Nobody wants to have anything to do with you because you don't want to play their game.
Yeah.
The game of fiction. And what is fiction? Fiction it's a fact that is not a fact, that is a lie. One example is 1 + 2 = 3. That's a fact. We can all agree to 1 + 2 = 3. This is a simple math algebra expression. But if I say 1 + 2 = 4, we all know it's a lie. But if the three of us agree it's true, you have a legal fiction. So we live according to that 1 + 2 = 4, but we all know it's a lie, but we agree on it. But we live the lie all the time because we agree. And when 2 or more people agree to something, you have a contract.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So we all gets into that. We're persuaded into agreeing to 1 + 2 = 4 because that's what the rest of the world is doing. And one day you should stop up and say, "Hey, on a minute, this is not right. This is not right." No. The terms and conditions is we all agree that 1 + 2 = 4 is true.
Yeah.
So it's that basically simple to understand. And then, of course, this fiction then creates a paper and says, this paper proves who you are. And we say, okay, this proves who I am. But it's a fiction. It's not a fact.
So are we here talking about the birth certificate, or are we talking about other identity papers?
All of them.
All of them, right.
So what law are we living in, or most people living in?
That depends on what you choose to participate with. Do you choose to participate with the fiction, or do you choose to participate with the facts? Because fact and fiction can never meet.
Right.
They can live independent, but they can never meet. So you choose what you do. You choose where you want to be.
And
Right.
and what's it called? The fiction laws that we have in the
all of the laws, rules, regulations, codes, everything that they say you are supposed to, according to this and this law, pay me this money because I say so. That's the fiction.
So we just
Okay.
put that as fiction, but like normally we would be talking about like a commercial law or maritime law or
All fiction.
All fiction. So we just label that as fiction. So we have to choose between, do I stand under 1 and 2 is 4, or on 1 and 2 is 3, basically?
Yeah. Do you choose the world of fact, or do you choose the world of fiction?
Yeah. All right.
You look it up in a dictionary, in a law dictionary. It says a legal fiction is something that is a lie, but everyone agrees to it being a fact.
Okay.
And so in the system, they create licenses to do everything, right?
Hmm.
So look up license. It says permission to break the law.
So a driver's license
is a permission to break the law. So who is giving who permission to what? Well, the issuer of the license is giving the license to break the law, and the license holder, which is you, now go out and break the law. But not their law.
The natural
fiction law, you break the natural law.
Yeah.
But and I am allowed.
You get to pay for that because you're the one who is actually performing it. But they are authorizing you under the fiction to break the law. But the natural law, when you break the natural law, like you hurt other people, do no harm. So let's say a doctor gets a license to practice medicine. So the medicine, they sign their name, which is a scribble, you can't read it. And they give it to you every time you visit the doctor. And all medicines is patented property, is patented substances, because you cannot patent something that is natural. You cannot patent nature. You have to take nature, alter it, and then patent it, and then sell it. So that's poison. Now the doctor is licensed to break the law and hurt you by giving you the poison that you yourself asked them to give you, and you poison yourself.
And just a little fun
clever.
statistic. The third most common cause of death is death by medicine.
Yeah,
Correctly given medicine even.
Yeah.
So look up pharmaceuticals, means those who makes the poisons.
Wow.
My first big realization with this was when I looked at the registration certificate for our car, and it said the holder of this certificate is not the owner of the vehicle. And I showed it, it was such a big epiphany for me. I showed it to our then friends and family, among which were a police officer, and they all said, yes, but that's not what it means. Why would anything be written on a piece of legal paper that is not exactly what it means? There's nothing that would not be exactly what it means, because that's a contract. And that was my big realization. It's like, I no longer own this vehicle. I have somehow signed away my rights.
Well, you haven't signed away the rights. You have signed away the property ownership.
Yes. Oh yeah, you still have the right to use it, but it's not yours anymore. Right.
So what you do is that you split the title. So when you buy a car, you get a receipt. Anything you buy, a cup of coffee in a cafe, you get a receipt. That's your title. Okay. Then what happens when you register the title with the motor vehicle department? Split the title. You become a tenant, which means you have the right to use the car, but they own the car. So now there is a title of use and a title of ownership. So because you give the motor vehicle the original title to your car, you've now given away your property for free, because you're such a nice guy. And I think I want to donate this to the state, because you're so good to us. So here's my car, and you just have to drive it. And then they say, that's fine, but now you're renting our property. So you have to pay your rents to us. So you pay, to drive the road, you pay all their taxes, all their fees, even on the gasoline you put in the car, there's a tax. That's rent. You're paying rent to drive the property that you yourself bought, you own, but you donated it away.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's called split title. And they did the same with the birth certificate, because your mother said, this is now my property, my child. I give it to the state, and you give me a paper that allows me to take care of my property. But you now own the property, and then you must pay rent for taking care of the property you gave birth to as a mother.
And that's where we have parent coming from.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
actually, I just found a book on contracts. It dates back to 1912.
Yes.
In there it says child is property of the head of the family. It says it literally, word for word. 1912.
Okay.
Book on contracts. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. And that would, in most countries, be the male of the house, the oldest male of the household.
Yes, because the man also in the book of Genesis is the first creation. Later, the woman is created for the purpose of continuance of species.
This is
The species could not continue if there wasn't a man with a womb. Woman.
yeah.
So they hide it all in these titles and words. So man actually it's both a species, mankind, but it's also an office. You are the holder of the office of man. You have the highest office under natural law in this world.
Wow. So when you come to the realization that you're born into this fictitious system that like it shows up as being extremely real, but you can like peel at the edges of it. Like you can see, for instance, with your birth certificate, which is also like pronounced the same way as a vessel in a dock berthed. But you can see all these, you start to see all these edges, like where, like how do we start to step out from under that system and into the factual system?
Yeah.
The first thing you got to do is you got to realize that you've been had.
Yeah.
You know? But again, you can't blame anyone because you agreed to it. Because if you didn't agree to it, you didn't have any friends as a kid. So even back then you made the decision, but any time of the day, any time in your life that you want to make a decision that's different, you can do so.
Just has a price.
It has a price, of course. It has a consequence, of course. But it all starts with you making your decision. And then you actually, what I did is I created a piece of paper, a document with my information on it. And I wrote it in facts in quantum grammar. And therefore, I'm now the holder of physical evidence of who and what I am. And you could say that's the first step out of the fiction. You have something of fact that you're a holder of, and you're a creator of it too. So that is now your property. And it's a fact. It's under correctness because it is according to the natural laws, which is mathematical expressions, which is certifiable both frontwards and backwards. And you can't argue with math. You can't argue with 1 + 2 = 3 because there is one true answer and the rest is infinite number of wrong, of fiction answers. So that's really what you then have, and you have it, you could say registered or not registered, but what would you do? You mail it to yourself through the mail system, which controls all contracts and all motions and movement of all vessels in the whole system and the whole planet, because we're all designated vessels. Anything that can be brought into motion is defined as a vessel.
Right.
So your body can move from A to B, so it's a vessel.
So when we now, let's say you create your own papers, like I know you have used your own papers to gain entry to places that you would normally not be able to gain entry to without legal documentation. Do you want to tell? Or?
So your claim of life, written in quantum grammar in English, the English words. I have used that. I've used it in courts. I have been asked to leave the court room. Another time I was asked to leave the court building in Frederiksberg, Copenhagen, because a fact cannot have any business in a fiction. And the subject matter that I was there with some kind of fine has just been erased from the system because they could not profit from that, because I didn't want to join with the fiction and pay their fee, whatever. So because they are measured on how much success they have in what they're doing, the judges, like any other officer in any company. So they make sure that any evidence of that case disappears, because then they can't be measured for a failure for them to perform and then get promoted in their own fiction system. So that's my experience. I've done it several occasions, and I've even accessed foreign governments' vessels with these documentations. Yeah.
Right. So that the as we say, the proof is in the pudding. These documents can be used, but it's not just enough to go out and like procure or create these documents. Like you can still land in hot water if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So anybody who's listening to this, watching this, just you have to know what you're doing with these things. The paper in itself will not just protect you.
What I can say is that, and I've helped many people, maybe more than 100, and they have all, except a few, maybe 2 or 3 out of 100, it's pretty good percentage. They have all had an experience that opened up their perceptions and opened up their comprehension to who they really are.
Yes.
And so the paper itself, you could say, was the trigger for them to beginning to start and find out, who am I and how is it? I figured this out, listened to videos, I studied the laws myself, I was in the books, for 3 years, and come to comprehend this. And there's a lot of material available.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you just saw, head on over to whoselifeisitsummit.com/podcast, where you can find full-length episodes as well as in audio format, and we do a lot of other cool stuff. You can hang out with us and other like-minded individuals who want to create a world that works for everyone, and we do that on our platform where we can chat, and we have Q&As and exclusive interviews as well. So there's so much to get over there. So come on over and play with us.